Good afternoon and welcome to today's CLE presentation of Starting Your Own Law Practice Best Practices. It's a presentation by the Houston Lawyer Referral Services. My name is Mitch Reid. I'll be the moderator today of a panel. I'm the incoming president of the Houston Lawyer Referral Service. I'm a partner and commercial litigator with Hunt & Andrews Kurth in Houston. I've been practicing for about 18 years, and I'm also a director on the board of directors of the Houston Bar Association. The goal of today's program is we are going to discuss some of the best practices for starting your own law practice. The practice of law is both a business and a profession. To start your own law firm successfully, you must agree to see it as both. The skills that it takes to run a business aren't necessarily the same skills that it takes to practice law. We have a great panel today of attorneys who have been successful at doing both. They are here to provide their helpful insights on many of the basic issues you will need to address when starting your own practice. They will also discuss some of the challenges you may face in maintaining and growing a successful practice. With that, I'll introduce my panel today, Susan Soto, Shelly Davis-Smith, and Jesse Corona, and I'll allow them each to introduce themselves individually. We'll start with you, Susan.
Hello, I'm Susan Soto. I am an attorney in private practice at Susan Soto Law. I've been an attorney for almost 10 years now and a member of Houston Lawyer Referral Service for about 2 years.
And how about you, Ms. Davis-Smith?
Thank you. My name is Shelly Davis-Smith. I'm an attorney in Texas. I run my own private practice known as the Davis Law Firm, and I've been licensed to practice since 2005, and I've been a member of the Houston Lawyers Referral Service for about 10 years.
And Mr. Corona.
Yeah, hi, my name is Jesse Corona with the Corona Law Firm. I have a very popular name right now. It's through no fault of my own. It's myself and another attorney, a couple of staffers, and I primarily practice first-party insurance. I'm a policyholder guy, mostly hail, wind, storm cases, anything where you're trying to hold your insurance accountable for doing something wrong. I've had my own practice about 7 years, and before I was an attorney, I was a TV reporter for about 10 years, and been a member of HLRS 2 years now.
Well, thank you all for agreeing to participate in this CLE video to help attorneys who are considering going into private practice. Before we start, I thought I'd give a little bit of a background of who the Houston Lawyer Referral Service is. The Houston Lawyer Referral Service, or HLRS, is a nonprofit organization that refers the general public to a lawyer who is in good standing with the State Bar of Texas. HLRS provides referrals to nearly 200 private practice attorneys who have been screened and selected on experience in specific areas of law. We can place cases with attorneys practicing in 38 different legal categories. And in the last 12 months, for example, HLRS attorneys, members have earned approximately $2.5 million in legal fees. And that's an average of about $15,000 a year from HLRS referred clients. We are sponsored by the Houston Bar Association and 9 other local bar associations serving individuals with a legal matter in the greater Houston metropolitan area, including Harris County, Montgomery County, Fort Bend County, Brazoria County, and Galveston counties. The goal of HLRS is to help the general public by connecting those seeking quality legal representation with qualified attorneys. From a professional standpoint, we want to help recent law graduates considering building their own practice when coming out of school. But we're also seeking to help attorneys who are simply looking for a fresh start or who are effectively starting over. With that introduction of my panel and a little background on the HLRS, let's get to today's presentation. So you've made the decision to start your own law practice, or your current practice is changing and it's time to reevaluate your business and your legal career. There are many things you need to address, which brings us to our first topic, office space. Deciding where to hang your proverbial shingle is one of the most important decisions that you'll make. You may be looking for a reasonable location at a reasonable cost, but wherever you decide to work, you will certainly need a business address. And so I'd like to start with Susan. What are some considerations you might have regarding office space as a new lawyer starting a legal practice?
First off, if you're considering becoming a member of HLRS, to be a member, you have to have office space that is not connected to or associated with any residence, whether it's your own or someone else's. So you need an independent office space. If you don't have that right away, then that's something you'll want to work on before you consider joining HLRS. I took a very conservative approach to opening my own office. At first, when I had a very small book of business, I was officing out of my house and relying on friends' conference rooms and other meeting areas. When my business started to grow, I ventured out and rented some space at one of the virtual office suite companies and met clients there. That was helpful for me because then I had someone who could answer my phone. But eventually I was spending too much time driving back and forth from the house to the virtual office space, and I needed to find a brick and mortar location that I could set up in permanently. And I found a great situation. I was having lunch with a former friend from law school and explained to her that I was looking for some brick and mortar. And being still very small, I didn't have the capital to rent a large office for myself or certainly buy anything. And she said, well, we have an extra office in our suite. Let me talk to my law partner and see if we can have you come in and sublease from us. And so I've done that. I have an office and a secretarial area in an office with two other attorneys. I have full use of the two conference rooms in the suite and of course the kitchen area and all of the office machinery. And the great thing is that my rent comes with the receptionist. My name's on the door, and so I'm set up just like the other two attorneys in the suite. So that's my journey as far as office space is concerned. Jesse, what do you have to add?
Well, I mean, like Mitch said, in having an office and a place to go to is one of the most important considerations you can have as an attorney. And it's been something that I've continually changed 3 times over the course of 7 years of my private practice. It's important to have a professional space, be it a virtual office or not, where you can go to hold depositions. And it's important because defense attorneys are judging you when they're coming to those depositions. They're looking to see, can these guys go the distance? Can these ladies go the distance? Do they have the funds to be able to go through the entire process of litigation? So when I first started out, I went immediately to a small office space, and I rented a place that had 2 offices, just the main office for me and an ante room. And it was around $400 a month, and it was a little bit outside the city. So you can get better deals if you go outside the city. And we're based in Houston, so I'm talking specifically about Houston. So look for deals a little bit outside the city. And then I ended up getting a situation where I found a deal, and I ended up being able to buy a small building. So there's condo spaces where you can buy not inside the city, but outside the city for the price of a decent home, and then you can rent off office spaces and make some money back if you want to do that. But primarily for me, it's just all about presentation. When defense attorneys come in to do depositions, a nice big conference room that you can have multiple attorneys in for those gang type depositions. And by that, I mean a bunch of different attorneys. Also a place to meet your clients, because clients are making judgments based upon your space as well. I'd recommend when you do have a space that you do put your words and the I love me kind of stuff right into the entranceway heading to the conference room. So I have it kind of laid out so it looks like we're in here for the long haul for those depositions. Mitch?
Thanks. That's helpful. Shelly, would you like to add anything to that?
I would just say use your alumni network. Some alumni may be looking for some extra help on big cases, or may let you kind of hang out or use their office until you get your feet wet and start picking up a couple of cases. Barter your services. If you can offer some sort of legal services, make some appearances, take every opportunity you have to learn. And then I think that you may actually have an opportunity to get relatively inexpensive office space by working with some of your networks that you've already established by going to law school.
Great. Well, that's all very helpful. Obviously, office space is an important decision to make when you go out and practice on your own. Let's shift gears a little bit and talk about something that's kind of important to all attorneys. Whether firms of all sizes, whether it's a small office practitioner or a large firm, we all have exposure to a number of liability risks that are unique to the legal profession that arise out of the practice of law. And I'm talking specifically about insurance, professional liability insurance for lawyers. Sometimes it's referred to as malpractice insurance, is one of the most important types of insurance for all types of lawyers and law firms. Susan, what can you tell us about professional liability insurance?
This might be a new topic to consider. If you've been working in a large firm and you're starting over on your own in private practice, the firm may have taken care of this for you. If you're just fresh out of law school and starting out, then this is new territory for you. So first, I want to be sure that we're all talking about the same thing. Of course, professional liability insurance is insurance coverage for claims that are made against attorneys in the rendering of legal services. So when you're looking at different policies, make sure that you know what's covered in your professional liability insurance policy. Does it cover breaches of data security? Is it only malpractice? You need to know exactly what kind of insurance you're getting. This is going to be one of the costs that adds to your overhead for starting out. And the cost of a policy depends on several factors. It depends on the number of attorneys in the firm, your area of practice. Some are more expensive to insure than others. Of course, your geographical area, your policy limits and the deductible that you're looking at. Just like car insurance, you may set a high deductible so that you can have a lower monthly premium, but keep in mind you may want to put some money aside then to pay that deductible if an issue ever comes up. Then, of course, other cost factors include any claims history that you may have, and also your risk management procedures. And by that, I mean things like your docket control process, your conflict management system, however you manage those conflicts, and also if you have a regular billing procedure that's in place. So those are all things that you'll have to decide what is your procedure before you can start shopping for insurance. And just a reminder that the American Bar Association has reported that 70% of all malpractice claims are made against attorneys in small firms. So if you're looking to start over or start out on your own, this is something that I would encourage you to take very seriously. And of course, we can probably guess, but the Zurich American Insurance Company says that the #1 cause of malpractice claims is missed deadlines. That's why that docket management system and your calendaring system is so important. If you're renting office space, another type of insurance that you may be required to carry is business insurance for having clients on the property, for you being on the property, and then of course insuring your business assets. And then one last reminder about insurance. If you are planning on joining the HLRS, they do require that you carry liability insurance with the $100,000, $300,000 policy limits. There are several insurance companies that offer small policies just for referral service lawyers. But keep in mind that if you get that kind of policy, the only type of claim that would be covered is one that comes from that referral service. Mitch?
So let me ask for the whole panel, as say an attorney coming right out of law school, past the bar, ready to practice law, needs to go find insurance. Did do you suggest doing this on your own, going to a broker? How do you go about finding the right insurance and ensuring that you're properly insured?
Mitch, I'll jump in there. There's several research sources to go about, and I'm going to borrow from Shelly and look to your alumni networks. They can have recommendations to do that. And for an attorney first starting out, malpractice insurance is really inexpensive because they don't have that period of time where they could have been committing mistakes. And so for the first, say, 4 to 5 years, carrying a large amount of insurance is really inexpensive. And it's also the time you're probably going to make your most mistakes. So it's highly recommended. I recommend it to get the maximum you can afford because it doesn't cost that much at first.
That's helpful. I will point out too, the Texas Lawyer Insurance Exchange, TLIE, does offer basic referral service policies that are less expensive sometimes. So that's another asset. Anybody else have anything they'd like to add for insurance?
The state bar have some referrals as well that you can go to. There's a couple of insurance providers on the state bar website.
Thank you, Shelly. Excellent. Let's now turn to technology. The use of technology in the practice of law can obviously streamline many of the tasks that we do as an attorney. It obviously can be very helpful in smoothly running your business as well. Shelly, can you discuss some of the aspects of technology, such as business websites and email domains, or anything else you'd like to speak about?
Sure. I think that as an attorney starting out or starting a private practice, that you need to have a professional domain in communicating with your clients and opposing counsels and third-party individuals. I think that it lays out a certain level of professionalism to have a private domain that identifies you, your law firm, rather than using a public domain such as yahoo.com or gmail.com. In addition to that, once you establish your website, I think that it is worth the investment to get an encrypted website so that when you begin exchanging highly sensitive documents, financial documents, healthcare documents, that those records are protected and it protects you and also your clients in the transfer and the remittance of that information. So you don't want private healthcare information getting out or distributed among Yahoo or Gmail that's not protected at all. So it's worth the investment. I think that you probably can get a domain for about less than $100 a month. Now the encryption will cost you a little bit more on a monthly basis, and it'll provide you a certain number of emails, anywhere from 3 to 5 is what we have here in our office. If you need more email domains, you definitely can pay for those. But at the beginning, I think it's important for you to establish your own website domain. And as you start to grow, or if you develop a partnership, you can get a new domain and save the one that you have as well to continue to generate business moving forward.
Great. How about you, Jesse? What additional helpful tips can you provide us regarding technology?
Well, I can talk about technology all day long. That's a 10-hour topic, but I'll try to hit some of the main points. Technology is what enables someone in private practice in a small office or a solo office to work harder, not smarter. So I highly recommend investing in a case management software. And I'm not particularly endorsing any such case management software. I use a company called MyCase. But there's a lot of options out there. And MyCase does, I know they do a 10% discount through the Texas Bar if you do use them. So case management software enables you to calendar everything. It gives you one place where you can make notations onto client files. It gives you a place to set up a client file. And I'm going to do the screen share and show you a little bit of my portal on for MyCase. There we go. Okay. So this is what the portal looks like, and I have to be careful. I don't want to click into certain sections and show some client information. But this particular case management software has where you can list all your cases by their status, open or closed, all the contacts, the client contacts or referrals. You can assign tasks to files. This calendaring system here, you actually calendar stuff into the software, and then it translates back to whatever calendaring software you have on your computer, like Outlook or iCal. Also, here's the entries that people can make, staff members or yourself can make into the file so you know what's going on. You can set up upcoming events, add expenses, stuff like this. So case management software such as this also enables you to do document automation, which is huge for me. It was huge for me first starting out, because there's certain documents that you're going to do over and over, like a client welcome letter. And instead of doing keyword search and replace, if you do document automation, you do that letter once, you assign a bunch of codes to it, and then once you set up a client contact from there on out, you just run this document and it fills in all the information. And you can set it up, you can spend as much time as you want on this thing to make it look really specific, so it doesn't look like a form letter. So I have welcome letters versus, depending on the practice, I have letters of representation. I even have a couple of petitions for the ones that I do a lot. Now, the petitions themselves, when you actually look at the templates, it's just a bunch of codes. But those codes represent pieces of information that you put into the case management software, and then those codes tie into that information. It fills it out. It saves on a huge amount of time and enables you to do more with less versus typing this all out yourself, especially if you don't have staffers to first start out with. So I'm a big proponent of document automation. There's a couple of other things. So this particular software that I use is also tied into the website. So this is also hosted by the MyCase website. And what happens there is that enables a client, once you set them up, to be able to log back into their client information right through here. So the website hosting is tied into the case management software. And one of the other complaints that people do make to the Texas Bar is client contact and not responding to client contacts. So this gives you another way for your clients to reach out to you, send you messages, log into their file, maybe without actually tying you up on a phone to ask, hey, what's going on with my case? They can log into the back end of the case management software that you set up for them. Another thing that I use that it's super inexpensive is a virtual chatbot. So I have this little chatbot that I wrote the scripts for, and the scripts are super simple. You type in what you want and you play around with it and go through it. And people, I can't tell you how many people I've engaged with this virtual chatbot, but I think I spend like $40 a year on thinking it's a real person. And so this enables you to get calls 24 hours a day when you're not actually answering the phone. People engage with the chatbot, and when they click send, you get this script sent to you. And each of these chatbots, I believe this is powered by Virtual Spirits. Each of these chatbots you can set to have a certain goal in mind, be it click send to get client information, give them information about your practice area. So virtual chatbots, worth the investment. Let's see what else we have here.
Well, while you're going through that, can I ask you a question on the case management software that you're showing here? I assume you can access that and work from home from a remote location?
Yes. So the case management software, this lives in the cloud. And so you can set it up with multiple redundancies on security, as in two-factor identification, where you get a text message, you actually put in your password, and you get a text message code where you can log in, but you can also access this anywhere. So you don't have to be sitting at your office. And so if you're doing a virtual office type situation, you still have everything you would have sitting at your office.
Did you see any hiccups with the pandemic and everything that's been going on several months to be able to, seamlessly keep working?
No, actually, no, that I did not. This kind of setup was perfect for this. We did have some internet slowdowns, but it actually enabled me. That brings me to the next software that I was going to talk about. It's a software called Slack, which is a communication software that maybe is a little bit further down the road. Maybe someone might not want to jump out and start using. But Slack is a way so you don't use so many emails. It's designed to take the place of inter-office emails. So if you have staff members talking back and forth, or you're not actually at a central location, it's like an instant messaging type of system. So you're not exchanging inter-office emails back and forth. You can just message people on certain topics. It enables you to set up certain channels, like a demand channel, petition channel, settlement channel, and engage in those kinds of discussions. Okay, that I think is important for someone starting their own practice or starting out is information. Can you guys see my connection?
Yes.
Okay. So for filing cases, there's multiple ways you can do that, but I recommend the efiletexas.gov. It's free. If you're filing into a case, you do get to situations where it charges you $2 per filing on certain sessions. But efiletexas.gov, it is the portal that when people are using these case management filing softwares, that's end up where they're going anyway. So might as well go to the source and file it through efiletexas.gov. Now, this Research Texas thing just came out about a year ago. That's a software that's tied into efiletexas.gov that enables you to search all 254 Texas counties and find filed information in all those counties. If you're in Harris County, you can log in, set yourself up and your staff members up, and be able to get the information you need anyway. But if you start practicing outside those counties, it's just a patchwork of information and set up, and some counties have things available, some counties don't. So Research Texas is set up so you can log in and find out information in those counties. So the basic account, as you can see right here, is free. So you can get the basic account for free. You don't have to pay a thing for it. As you go up the chain to premium account, you see this is $8 a month, and this enables you to do a little bit more. If you need to research into your opposing counsel and to expert witnesses, this allows you to do 15 searches a month, and that's for $8 a month. So I've used premium for the last year, and if you practice outside the one county, it's very helpful. Okay. A couple more things. I don't want to monopolize you guys' time, but I think it's important for e-sign contracts. Again, especially if you're first starting out, you don't have the space that you necessarily want people to see yet. You might want to consider doing contracts where you can send it to them digitally. You want to convert that lead into an actual client as soon as possible. So if you're on the phone with them and you got them qualified and interested, and you think it's a good business decision, the ability to be able to send a contract to them through their email and have them sign right there is huge. Adobe Sign has there's a couple of options. Adobe Sign through Adobe Pro. We use HelloSign. It's a monthly fee, and there's a couple of other ones out there. But e-sign contracts is huge for us. Yeah. And that's it in a nutshell. Like I said, I could talk all day about it.
Well, I'll say, Jesse, that's a wealth of information. I know we could probably go on and on about how much technology has really shaped the practice of law, probably the last 20 years, especially probably in the last 10. I think obviously the pandemic and the work from home orders and things like that is probably going to shape it even more, with depositions online sometimes now and various other things. So thank you. That's very helpful. But I guess to keep us moving, let's talk about one of the biggest questions facing every attorney, and that's how do I get new clients? Or the broader scope question, how do I market my law firm in 2020? This is another great concern of any attorney seeking to go into private practice. So let's start with Shelly. Can you tell us regarding clients and advertising and kind of how you go about with those two topics?
Sure. When you join the Houston Lawyer Referral Service, you have to have a minimum malpractice insurance. And with that same insurance that you have, you now qualify to join other attorney panels. So there's other listings that provide this type of service as well. So one of the best ways in getting more clients is always to do a good job. If you do a good job for one client, that client is going to be a referring client for a lifetime. I recently had a client that I did work for 15 years ago, and her mother called me yesterday. So they remember you, they want to use you. So just remember that the work that you do now is important. It establishes a reputation among your clients, among your colleagues, and among the judiciary as well. So always think to do that. With the age of social media right now, Facebook, Instagram, those Google ads, those will actually generate some clients as well. And they're not that expensive to go ahead and get done. I also think it's really important for you to start networking, start joining organizations. For example, I have a colleague who does real estate. And what he does on a monthly basis is attend real estate investors meetings. And he gets his clients and he advertises and he presents himself to those investors as their real estate attorney, because there are very few attorneys that attend those type of meetings. So if you have a service that you can provide, find some other avenues on where you can actually personally go back in and network. I think, the face-to-face networking absolutely works better than an ad that's in social media or something that you just send via email. I think that you have a higher probability of hiring somebody who's going to pay a retainer once they've met with you, conversed with you, and kind of recognize your demeanor as well. So that's what we do here in the office.
Great. Jesse, how about you?
Advertising, that's something you could dump a lot of money on and not see a good result. So it's kind of hit or miss in a sense of what works for an individual person. HLRS is great for advertising. If you want to break into new areas or get new stuff that's outside your wheelhouse, HLRS is a good resource for that. I have a mixed bag of civil litigation, mostly plaintiff, because I'm plaintiff-minded. We like to start trouble instead of deal with someone else's trouble. But so HLRS is been good for building up my mixed civil litigation bag for the last two years. We use Google AdWords. You can play around with that and pay for targeted advertising. Personal injury is we have personal injury too, but everybody's got personal injury in Houston area. So if you're doing Google ads through personal injury, you're probably not going to get a lot of bang for your buck. But if you target like a niche area that a lot of people aren't advertising in, you can see some returns on the Google AdWords. And have your firm office set up through Google Maps. So the Google AdWords ties into the Google Maps. That way, so when someone clicks on the Google AdWords, that brings up your phone number from the maps, and it's all synced together and tied together, and they can track you how your ad is doing through that. Other than that, networking with alumni networks and getting out there and being social, talking to people, and maybe not always talking about, hey, I need cases, maybe just being social and talking to folks. If you come across as knowledgeable, that eventually leads to conversations about areas you practice. And I think clients choosing an attorney is kind of like playing poker. They don't play the cards, they play the people. So people choose attorneys based upon, do they like the people? Do they sound credible? Are they good people versus necessarily, hey, I got 5 years practice in this versus someone else who's got more.
It's excellent. I think regardless of whether you're a brand new attorney or you've been practicing your whole career, those are good things to live by. How about you, Susan? What can you add?
My experience is a little bit different. I practice all across the state. And so besides being a member of HLRS, I'm also a member of the referral service through the state bar, which gives me referrals across the state. I also thought it was important to mention during this advertising segment to encourage, especially those who are just first starting out, encourage you to not consider the business card a dead and old-fashioned business tool. It's better to have some on hand and not be asked for them than to give the bad impression that you're not prepared if someone says at the end of a luncheon or after meeting you in line somewhere, hey, do you have a card? I still get asked for business cards. And so that's something very simple that you can have with you. And a wise lawyer told me when I was first starting out that he had a goal when he started out to hand out a certain number of business cards every day. So if you are getting out there and networking, joining organizations, or just starting conversation with people, a business card is a handy thing to have. And the other thing that I would suggest is that you make sure that you're getting a return on your investment and you're tailoring your advertising to the clients that you want to get coming into your office. I practice school law, representing teachers, parents, and students. So over the years, I've had to get very creative in ways that I have discovered to reach students and parents and teachers. So I've done some pretty unconventional things. I have sponsored school intramural sports teams so that my firm name is on the back of the t-shirts. And team quantity of t-shirts is a pretty inexpensive way to get my name out there to a whole lot of people in the stands. Another thing that I did is have one of my rack cards, which is a promotional piece, inserted into all of the programs at a Sugarland Skeeters baseball game that was sponsoring several school-related groups at that particular game. And also, one time I had the opportunity to actually advertise on the inside pocket of a folder for a real estate company. The realtor had pre-printed folders to give home buyers their documents in, and a lot of new home buyers have kids who are going to be enrolling in school. And so for me in a school law practice, that was a good way to get my name out there as well. So make sure that you're using types of advertising to reach the client base that you want to reach. And before I pass it back to you, Mitch, I just want to remind everybody viewing this CLE that the bar does have advertising rules. So make sure you review those before you go out and do any advertising ventures.
Thank you. And all great suggestions from everybody on the panel. As to the Houston Lawyer Referral Service, it's been touched on, but obviously there are ways that referrals obviously come through us, the HLRS website, the Houston Bar Association website. There are a lot of times references to the HLRS through callers to the HBA's legal line, a number of avenues to members that are attorney members of the HLRS. Let's move on to another area of that somebody beginning to practice law or starting a new practice may have to think about. It's an area probably nobody likes to think about, but there are a number of tax issues that can arise in the practice of law. These may be issues that an individual may not have considered before becoming a lawyer and opening a law practice. But new lawyers should not overlook the importance of effectively planning for the tax consequences of opening their own practice. You don't want to be surprised by an unwelcome tax bill from the IRS or the Texas Franchise Tax Board. So Susan, what are some issues facing attorneys on the tax front?
I have 2 tips to share. And the first tip is to borrow loosely from Shakespeare, get thee to a professional. I made the mistake of trying to do my own taxes for the first couple of years, and I had a very small book of business and it was pretty simple, but as my practice grew, I knew it was way more than I could handle because I don't have a finance background. And so I've been fortunate to work with a CPA who is also a tax attorney, and she certainly keeps me in line and has helped me with some best practices. One tip that I can share that I use in my firm, we don't just have 2 separate checking accounts, one for IOLTA, the lawyer's trust account, and one for the operating account. But I have a 3rd checking account, which is earmarked only for payments to the IRS. I did not realize first starting out that I had to make quarterly payments to the IRS. And so now each time that I bill, I put a small amount of money aside into my IRS account. And then each quarter, I'm able to write a check directly from that account. And I know that that money hasn't been touched. And that has been a lifesaver for me. Jesse, do you have any other tips to share?
I have a few items on this topic. First of all, I'm not a tax attorney, so that's good advice, Susan. Get to a professional on this. I think it's important to consider the form of business that you're going to form because it relates to how you're going to pay taxes. So when I first started out, it was important to me that I was not double taxed. And so the form of business that I chose and that I think most everybody's going to choose nowadays is the PLLC. That allows all the income from the firm to be taxed through you individually. And that's fine for someone first starting out before partnership. We also did an S Corp where as long as you have at least one employee, you pay fewer taxes as well. Again, I'm not a professional. I can just tell you a couple things that we had done. So it's important to think about how you're going to pay yourself and how you're going to pay taxes. And I'd recommend looking at the PLLC form and establishing yourself possibly as an S Corp and setting yourself up as a regular employee. That way you're paying Social Security taxes and you get a W-2 income, and then you can take dividends from the rest of the form of business later on, according to whatever you guys set up.
Shelly, would you like to add anything to that?
Sure. I think it's important to get some sort of bookkeeping electronic software in your firm. Something simple like QuickBooks will cost you about $20 a month. It'll keep records of all your expenses so that at the end of the year, when it's time to gather all that information for your taxes, it's kind of all there in one hub. And your accountant or your tax advisor won't have to go back through and identify taxes for the last 12 months or so. So I think that the investment into some software such as QuickBooks, if you're apprehensive about using QuickBooks, I know that the SBA and SCORES offer classes. Sometimes they're free on entry-level QuickBooks, or they'll charge a nominal fee like $25 so that you can have just a basic knowledge in using that type of software. But once you get in, it's relatively easy to use, something that you can update on a monthly basis, and is just going to be a lot cleaner and safer for you at the end of the year and for your tax advisor.
Well, thank you. Let's move on to another topic that's also important, is staffing your firm. One common issue that new lawyers face when growing their practice is deciding when and how to hire new employees. One thing you may need to decide is whether to seek help in hiring staff, or do you hire staff at all, or do you outsource the work? So, Shelly, what can you tell us about staffing a new law firm?
I would say that a growth of the law firm is going to require additional staff. So if your goal is to grow a firm, then ultimately you need to put that into your strategic or business plan in setting aside money to have an associate or some sort of staff in there. There's only so much one person can do in a day. And so once your practice starts to develop, you want to go ahead and start looking into finding someone to assist you. I always start at the law schools. I typically start with getting an intern there. Some of their programs or externships will offer free services for your firm in exchange for class credit or school credit. And then those individuals can come back and help you once they've gotten acclimated to your firm, while they're studying for the bar, while they're waiting on the bar results, and ultimately can lead into an associate position for those type of individuals that have already started in your firm. I typically start there and see if I can get any other assistance. The paralegal school will offer individuals who can help you administratively in doing some of the paperwork, answering some of the call, keeping some of the clients happy, things of that nature there. So those are the two sources on where I go in starting and building a firm and building a staff for the growth of the firm.
Great. Well, thank you for that. Susan, how about you? What can you, what helpful insights do you have?
I think we've all been reminded during this pandemic that having staff is a commitment. I have had paralegals in my office when the pandemic struck. Fortunately, I didn't have anyone staffed at the time, and so I wasn't required, morally at least, to continue to pay someone even when my business slowed down a little bit. So keep in mind that having staff is a commitment, and there are taxes that come along with having people on your payroll. I think the most important staff member to have is someone to answer the phone. At least for the way I run my office, I find it very difficult. If I'm answering the phone, it's difficult to postpone that initial question that a potential client has, or that potential client call that turns into a 20-minute consultation when I really didn't have time to do that at the moment. So I have found someone answering the phones for me has been most beneficial. I've talked to a lot of colleagues that have small offices as well, and frankly, many of us have found it difficult to find quality staff at a pay grade that we are able to provide. As a one-person private practice, I can't pay the big bucks that a big firm can pay a paralegal or even a file clerk. So having my receptionist tied into my rent in this office suite with my 2 lawyer friends has helped a great deal, because she handles calls and does light clerical for me. So knowing what type of staff that you want, and knowing that you may have to pay them if a hurricane comes or a pandemic comes, are 2 important considerations.
Well, thank you. Jesse, what would you like to add to that?
So staffing is a difficult thing, because you're right. You have to have it in order to grow, but then it is a commitment, and you have to provide for them, especially during times where business may not be what you want it to be, because it's slowing down a little bit, say with the pandemic. That being said, I think it's important to keep from hiring somebody when you're first starting out as long as possible. And that you can do that through case management and automation, like those documents that we were talking about earlier. So you can set it up so you're doing the documents you need to get out, and you're doing it with a couple clicks of a mouse and some correcting. That being said, you might want to look at something like Ruby Receptionist, I believe, is one of them. It's a virtual receptionist where you pay a monthly fee, and that receptionist will answer the phone. Your phones automatically go there. You get a nice professional sounding person to answer the phone and transfer the call or take the message or do whatever. And you sound a little bit bigger than you are at first. And so that's one thing. Also, digital phones. If you have a digital phone set up to where if you don't hire a virtual receptionist, where at least it's an answering type service with a nice professional sounding person, and then it puts you through to whatever extension, and when that person leaves a voicemail, you can get an email with the transcription of that voicemail. So you don't actually have to take that call, because as Susan said, you have to plan out your day. And if you happen to spend the entire day taking these kinds of calls that maybe you don't really want to talk to that person right now because you got to get this thing on file, having virtual receptionists and digital phones allows you to do that. Other than that, leverage what you can, hire the most qualified person you can to afford at the time. And as your needs change, you're going to have to change your staff. If this person doesn't work out, after giving them several times to fix it, it's sometimes best and easiest to let that person go. I remember the first time I had to let a person go, I was sick overnight, and I was dreading going to the office the next day. And but that's something that you're going to have to do as a business, because it is a business.
Well, I appreciate that. Well, we have covered a number of topics today, and we're about out of time. But briefly, I would like to go around the panel for maybe one last tip or any additional thoughts you might have for somebody that's starting their own practice. And I guess I'll just go back to you, Jesse. What tip might you have for somebody in that scenario?
Well, like I was just talking about, taking cases and having your own practice is a business. And sometimes the best thing you can do is say no to a case. We all want to help people. That's probably why we became attorneys. And I'm speaking generally. If that's not the reason why you became an attorney, don't be mad at me. But that's the reason I became an attorney. However, it's a business, and you got to decide, can you make money off that case? And if you're just starting out, your resources may not be what you want them to be ultimately. So you have to evaluate it from a business perspective. Look at the case. Is it something you know about? Can you turn that into money? How long is it going to take? Is it going to take 2 years of litigation and cost you $20,000 in expenses? Well, maybe that's not the case you want to take right then. Maybe you can refer it to your attorney friends and retain a percentage. Now, that's another thing. So having the ability to evaluate the case and decide, who should I give that to and retain a percentage for mailbox money? So HLRS referrals, if it comes from HLRS, then you have to refer back to HLRS. But if you get a referral from someone else, you can refer it to someone else, retain a percentage, and get some of that mailbox money. I think that's pretty much it I have on that topic, Mitch.
Well, thank you. Shelly, what can you add as a last minute parting tip?
Just to always secure your representation as a counsel of law. Remember, there may be people who ask you to do things that are unethical and borderline illegal. Just remember to guard your bar card, guard all the investments, financial investments, the time that you've put in to become a licensed attorney. Remember, your reputation will far precede you among clients, among colleagues, and the judiciary. They will remember you if you do something bad, unfortunately. So just protect your reputation. Remember that.
Excellent words of wisdom. Susan, how about you?
First, I would be prepared for the amount of overhead that having a private practice requires. So if you have to get your office supplies at the dollar store starting out, so be it. But be prepared for all of the overhead expenses that you have. And my final tip would be to get a mentor. You need someone who has been through the process so you can ask them questions about when am I supposed to pay those taxes, and where would you recommend I advertise for a file clerk? A mentor is invaluable. We tend to be very competitive as lawyers, but you need someone in your corner giving you good advice.
Well, thank you. And thank you, everybody, for your time today. I certainly want to thank my amazing panel, Shelly Davis-Smith, Jesse Corona, and Susan Soto. I hope you've all found today's CLE presentation informative. I know I have, and that you will consider becoming an HLRS member attorney. If you're interested in joining the HLRS, there is an online membership application on our website at HLRS.org. Because this was pre-recorded, if you have any questions about the topics covered today, please send your questions via email to info@hlrs.org. Your questions will be forwarded to either a panel member from today or another HLRS attorney member who has agreed to be a mentor to those considering HLRS membership or a new HLRS member. Once again, I'd like to thank you all for your time. It was very informative.